Have you been looking for a Taekwondo podcast with qualified people who know what they're talking about, who help you keep up with everything going on in the Taekwondo world? Well, you found it. This is the Taekwondo Podcast. Taekwondo news, competitions and other events, training and sports science, keeping the fans, coaches, and high-performance athletes up to date with the latest news and trends on Olympic Taekwondo. Let's do this. This is the Taekwondo Podcast. And here's your host, César Valentim.
Hello and welcome to the Taekwondo Podcast. We are a podcast based out of Austria in English language for everyone out there who likes Taekwondo. On this episode, we take a look at the final day of the Olympic Taekwondo Games in Paris and have a quick conversation about it. Welcome to our podcast. I'm Coach César Valentim. With me is again Coach Don Lewis. Hi Don, how are you today?
I'm very good, César. I'm looking forward to some rest tomorrow, and it's been a great 4 days.
I'm looking forward to catching up on some work tomorrow because I haven't been able to do any work in the last 4 days, looking at the matches all day long. But it was some interesting 4 days. I have to say these were by far the best Olympics in Taekwondo. The disappointment from the first 3 days were still able to continue through the fourth day, even though there were a few more punches, there were still not enough punches. And a lot of nice kicks on the vest that were not picked up by the system. Refereeing itself pretty clear, some interesting video replay decisions. And I guess we'll go and be able to talk about it. How is it for you?
I have to concur with a number of things you said. And I'll add to it with the equipment failures that KP&P should be absolutely embarrassed by the way their helmets did not perform. Some of the kicks were to the face, and you can explain those. Those are fine. Need video replay, but there was a large number, very significant number. And we'll get some data on that. That where, even on video replay, you can see the helmets dimple or be smashed in, compressed, or even just knocked right off the head. David Lee knocked a helmet right off, and it didn't register at all. So the helmets were horrible. Everybody's talking about that. So KP&B, if they were a significant company listed on a stock exchange, their stock would be in the dumper.
That's probably what's missing with most of our technology providers. They are very small companies, and the development or the R&D funds are just not available.
True enough. But data is probably cheering very loudly based on this, and it's going to show up when we compile all our information about scoring and such things over the next week or two.
Well, they have a chance, the competitors, to prove themselves. In a couple of months, we will have the Junior Worlds. So let's see if they got, after the flop that was the Guadalajara World Championships, Tedo has a lot coming back to do. So
that's right.
Let's go through. So the matches in the morning, we started with Cunningham against Abdul from Ivory Coast. Very interesting match, actually.
Yes, I thought it was too. 0-0 in the second round. Very close. A lot of them, again, like some of the other days, the matches, some of them were very close, turned on, just last second actions by athletes. I very much enjoy that. And I enjoy that more than the referees making the decision instead. So, and Abdul, ended up going into the repechage, and we can talk about that a little later. Talented guy, one of the older guys, and it was very interesting today that the younger guys, like Caden being 21, took care of all the old big guys.
Yes, and they lost in the final to a guy that's not much older. I think he's 22. So the younger generation is very good, but some of the older ones as well. Rafael Alba was impressive today. He
moved like he was a teenager, and I think he won Worlds. I think they said on the TV that he won Worlds at 17. He looked almost 17. Very agile for a very big man. I think they said he's 6'7", and which is just over 2 meters, I believe. And I really enjoyed his fights. Especially with Sufu later on, and as well with Caden Cunningham. Again, very close fight, 0-0, 0-4, 4-2.
Rafael was really good. It was nice to see. He got the world stage medal in 2013, and 11 years later is getting up bronze in in the in the Olympics. So the Americans were quite interesting. Jonathan Healy, was it what you were expecting, or did it surprise you?
It was mildly positively surprising. He could be a little bit erratic, but today he was very consistent on the aggressive side of things. He beat China, especially the third round, very convincingly. And then his match with Cece was surprisingly close. Only Cece actually won with a punch, 0-1 or 1-0 in the second round. So John should be very proud of himself. I think that might be enough for him to stay in the game in his career, getting some financial support from the U.S., of course. So that was good news. I think people in the States were pretty happy about that.
Oh, yes. And but the punches showed up for the first time today when it was Kazra Medipurnejad from the refugee team. The Iranian was able to actually throw some punches against Sisi in the first and second round. But if punches are not enough, if these games have something to tell you, is that if you can't kick, you can't win, because the punches were not scoring most of the times. The athletes that rely on punches, we saw today also in the female divisions, the athletes that rely on punches today, they struggled and they couldn't get to the medals.
Yeah, McGowan won a match in the repechage with 2 punches in the second round, 0-2. But I have to completely agree. And with the kicking, he was really going to the head, because it was somewhat rare. Like yesterday when So from Korea couldn't really score to the chest. That tells you a lot. Today was more of the same. Some very talented guys, very powerful guys. I actually did see Sansoris score right through a block. So it does show that with enough pressure, with a huge guy like that, you can score the pressure system. But it was, again, frustrating to watch.
Yeah, the Sansoris came, and he came in with a nice show. I think that's a very good call for the Mexican audience. And the mask entrance was interesting, but then the rest of his results were a little bit disappointing.
Yes, he's a huge favorite in Mexico, which is a rabid Taekwondo nation. I follow some of the Mexican American social media sites, and they've had like thousands of positive responses to loving that guy. I don't like his game personally. The shove and pretend to kick, knock the guy out of bounds doesn't really appeal to me. But he also can do the odd spin kick, which is impressive for a guy of his size, unknown size. Don't trust what they report him as. He's a very large man.
The thing with him is that when you look at him, is by far the athlete in this division that doesn't look like an athlete.
Yes, he is. I have a unkind nickname I've given him as the human refrigerator. And he just overpowers people with his mass sometimes, especially the guys that have come up from 87. They really just buckle. But the guy's got a lot of skills. I'll give him that. It's just not my favorite.
He pulls doubles and triples, and he did some today that were really nice. But he's used to that kind of game of prolonged pushing, and since a prolonged pushing in the last 12 months has been forbidden, there goes half of his strategy. And today, that's how he managed to overpower the opponents, managed to get them exhausted. But it was not enough at this level, it's not enough to get a medal.
Right.
So let's go to Rafaelovic was disappointing on the first match against Alimi, but again, I think he was just not there today. It was the semifinals and the repechage. He was a little bit better, but for me, one of the interesting surprises in the morning was how Richard Oderman beat Patrick Divkovic. It was a very interesting match, and also the same with Croatian with Ivan Shapina.
Yes, I didn't actually catch those because I was grabbing a little bit of sleep. But I saw them later on, and I saw those two guys fight in the quarterfinals. Very entertaining.
The quarterfinals was pretty close, at least up to the third round, and then it was just probably the weight difference, being Richard coming up one weight division very recently just for these games. Yes, that was quarterfinals were pretty clear. We had the favorites winning, Cunningham beating Alba very close, but very superior in the end. the American Jonathan Healy not being able to go against Jake Sisi. We had Salimi beating Carlos Ansores, and of course Ivan Sapina beating Oderman. But the females were actually the interesting rounds when it came to the quarterfinals. The first rounds, I think, in the morning, yes, Altea started the matches very well, and it's a very good victory against Munira Abdul Salomova. Sorry, me and my those names. And then the second match, one of the favorites, European champion Lorena Brandel, also beating the atleti from Costa Rica. And the other fights were, I have to say, as I mentioned yesterday, the fights were really boring. Most of the rounds were finished 0-0, decided on touches, or 2-0 or 3-0, and one score at most per round.
Yeah.
It was let's say that the fighting style is interesting, is definitely very tactical, but the excitement is missing. The excitement is not there. If you look at the male heavyweights, they still pull the doubles, they still pull the spinning kicks. And we did see some spinning kicks in the female division, but you didn't see any dynamic motions. The stepping wasn't there, except for the Korean. She did. Yes, Dabilin was very dynamic. She was very fast. All the others were just static. And yes, we know that's the style from Nafia. She waits for you, and then she pulls you, she cuts you. We know Petra is a punching girl. The Chinese girl was very dynamic, the Zeki Zhu, but again, not not by far what we saw yesterday with the 67s. And
right.
What was your opinion of the female divisions?
Very similar. I thankfully missed the lower half of the preliminary round, so I didn't see a lot of those boring matches, but I did see quite a few up in the upper half, so I know exactly what you're talking about. The quarterfinals, I actually predicted 7 of the 8 that would get there, and the outcomes of those as well. So again, not too many surprises. I thought Kuz from Turkey did quite a bit better than I expected her to today. And I was glad to see her get a medal at the end. We'll get back to that. But, Althea Lauren, real class and real strong against Brandel from Germany. That was a little bit eye-opening. And then Osipova totally destroyed Rebecca McGowan in the quarter that they had. And that was Osipova is so quick with her front leg. It was really nice to see. And I'm very impressed with her. I think she's got quite a future.
Yes, Svetlana Osipova was one of my favorites today. The way she dominated Rebecca McGowan, Rebecca being experienced, being one of the most well-funded athletes in this weight division, she just wasn't there. It was maybe the entire pressure or all the polemics involved on social media on her qualification. She deserved it. She won it fair and square. She was the top Olympic ranked athlete from GB. She was the one bringing the results. So, and she's also the youngest one. She's the most promising one, the one with the future. So it's all about who's the best, and she was the best of all the 3 that wanted to go in this weight division. She by far was prepared, was funded, was fit. And I think she was a little bit surprised by Svetlana Osipova. I don't know if it was preparation or if it was the day, but something wasn't right today with her.
She was just, literally too quick for her. As soon as she got hit a couple times with those, it probably got in her head, and she really couldn't recover. Kind of like we were talking about with Simone yesterday. Much more so with Rebecca today. I agree with you that I don't think there was much discussion required to pick her by the Brits. Took all the way till late June, I think it was. But she clearly was superior to Bianca Cook and Lauren Williams. I was not surprised by her going to the Olympics. Good for her.
Yes, very good for her, and I'm sure she'll keep playing her cards, and she will be able to reach podiums in the future. For me, one of the best matches in the quarterfinals was actually Dabin Lin with Zeki Zhu, the Asian champion against the young Korean. it was an amazing match. It was dynamic, a lot of spinning kicks, and at the same time, is one of the matches that got me thinking. We know that when the rules changed, that we had hitting in the back of the head from the clinch position is supposed to be forbidden.
And if you're touching, holding.
If you're holding, yes, if you're on a clinch. And we saw it a few times. We saw it with Iran, but with her, it was pretty clear. She was grabbing, she had her arm over, and yet the scorpion kick scored. The referees, they asked for a video replay, and the video replay awarded it. So if they changed something in the rules, as we mentioned yesterday, we need to know, because it's impossible to comment. And you can imagine the ones that are not doing a podcast late at night, but the ones who are commenting live in the broadcast channels, how can they explain the rules if the referee decisions allowed such things to happen? Is it by design, or do you think it's on this championship they let it go, or they're going to change the rule?
I think they were just letting it go. There was, they did call, clutching, holding, and taking off points a few times, but I'd guesstimate that it was about half the time or less. So I agree with you that it's a clear rule violation. I believe in that match that you're discussing in the quarterfinals between Lee and Zhu, that wasn't in the third round that the referee took away China's head kick and then gave her a gamjong, which allowed David to win.
Exactly.
I've got a note there about that. So, I'm not sure if that's compensation about that issue, but you shouldn't have to give one and then take one away. You should just be consistent.
Well, a fair judgment. There's no compensation. You have to live by the decisions you made as a referee and as a video review jury.
Right.
So semifinals, great match. Kerim Cunningham against Sheikh Sisi, right?
Sure was.
Surprising, the victory by Cunningham, huh?
Yeah, he got off to a big start in the first round. He got up and ended up 11-6 in his favor. But, he was up a little bit more than that, near the end of the match. And he started to, play to the crowd. It reminded me a little bit too much of CJ Nicholas, where you get a little bit ahead of yourself and, your celebration, it can be very short-lived. And then Sisi came back in the second round and did take it and surprised him, was stronger. And then the third round ended up being tied with the headshot making the difference for Caden with the tie 5-5. Excellent match. We enjoyed it tremendously. I'd like to see more of those guys going at it. But, Caden deserved it.
And that's why we love this sport. The action, the last minute calls, the giving all is as long as you're playing, as long as the time is running, you can keep kicking. And the game is not over until the referee says "Koma," and it's those matches that are exciting. And it also happened in the second semifinal with Salimi and Sapina.
Yes, it did. Again, very close. 3 rounds again. I like Salimi's style. Big, young, tall guy. And Iran, I'm just going to say right now, just before I forget, that Iran had the Olympics of all the nations. All 4 of their athletes medaled. With Salimi, topping it off with the gold eventually. But Sapina stood in there, being the smaller guy. I thought that was good of him to make it as close as it was. But I think the true champion won that match over Croatia.
Oh yes, and the domination that Salimi gave to Cunningham in the finals was impressive. Yes, there was each one wins the first and second round. But the sheer amount of head kicks he managed to score on Cunningham in the third round is impressive.
Yes, yeah, and I believe they lost their card, and of course the equipment stopped, wasn't registering everything, so there were more head kicks than even the score indicates, and that happened in some other matches too, where they make a silly call with the. I think in one of the matches, China actually challenged kicking after Kallio on a head kick by the opposition, and immediately lost their card. So, these world-class coaches got to, put on their smart hats sometimes.
I saw a lot of a lot of coaches missing opportunities, not asking for the double point, for the extra 2 points on the turning kicks happened a lot. I can remember, for example, the bronze medal contest from Lorena Brandl, one of the good examples. It was 2 hits to the head, one of them with a spin, and that's it. No card being asked. But a lot of the Asian coaches, I don't know if it's a language problem, but they weren't able to communicate and they lost their cards. And sometimes, yes, sheer adrenaline, emotion, maybe they obfuscated a little bit your thoughts, and they ask for totally wrong things you should not even be able to ask, or they tried at least to give warnings to the referees, but losing their card and sacrificing their matches sometimes because they didn't have their card. And that's coaching is science, and it's also a coach also needs the mental training as much as the athletes to deal with the pressure. And it's today we saw some bad coaching, but again, we always complain about the bad refereeing, but sometimes there's bad players, sometimes there are bad coaches. We're all professional, and sometimes we make mistakes.
Absolutely, everybody's human, and we have to take that into account when we've got it's really high quality instant replay, and referees are making snap decisions. I think we're a little too tough on them at times, but they're the ones who stand in the middle of the ring and are making decisions.
Yeah. So I'm happy that the bronze medal in the male division today was for the veterans. It's like a good retirement in style, because I think both Rafael Alba and Sheikh Sisi are not staying around for much longer, right?
Yeah, I think they're all those guys, and I think even Sansouris might wrap it up with his his efforts, although it was unsatisfying for him to not medal. So who knows? He might come back for he'll be 31, I think it is, in 28 in the U.S. But since it's close to home, and Mexico and the States really have a rivalry, let's call it, maybe he'll stick around. But I think there's going to be a changing of the guard. Rafalovic, like you mentioned, I think he's 30. I don't believe he'll be sticking around too much. So we will have a changeover, and that's going to be very interesting, because aside from these young guys that we've seen here today, for example, United States, behind John Healy, we've got nobody in heavyweight. Nobody. We had some guys a few years ago, but before COVID, one of them was in the Army. He was 7 feet tall, and he just gave up during the whole COVID experience. And that the Army program that was sponsoring Taekwondo collapsed at the same time, so they're not even sponsoring athletes anymore. So yeah, it's thin ranks, and it's going to be interesting times.
Yeah, and the heavyweight you had before him is the one coaching now. So.
Absolutely, Stephen Lambden. I think he's going to put his hat in the ring to be president or CEO of USA Taekwondo. So that'll be interesting.
I'm not objective. I love the guy. He's as a person, as a player. I'm definitely not objective. I really, really like Stephen.
Yes.
When it comes to the longevity of the heavyweight, is also a little bit harder to say, because they have way longer career path than the lighter weights. Of course, they don't have to cut weight. They don't have so many injuries resulting from that kind of training programs. So the longevity of the heavyweights is a little bit longer. We might even see some of them compete all the way to the 35, 36. Look at in soccer and football, you see people like Ronaldo and on their 40s still giving cards. So
yeah, I believe Sajid Mardani from Iran, he was like 34, 35 when he was competing in the Grand Prix a year ago before he got his knee injury, and he still tried to come back. Yeah, so you could be in your mid-30s.
Exactly. I remember the Spanish, Juan Aguado Garcia, or even Steven Lopez. They were in the game for a long time. Let's talk about the 67s. Then the 67s in the the final four, they were definitely more interesting. That's when the matches started to become dynamic. Also, very clear decisions. The semifinals and finals were won by 2-0, so it's 2-0. It's very clear decision, except for the final. That I think a third round would be deserved. We don't know what's going on with the timekeeping, because the scoreboard was showing 0-0. But most of the matches were pretty clear, 2 rounds to 0. So Altea against Nafia. What are your thoughts on that semifinal?
Very tactical, very little scoring. Part of that is the chess gear. It was 2-1 and then 2-2, with Althea having the advantage in the second round. So extremely close. They must know each other very well from all their bouts they've had. And, Althea deserved it. she should advance, and she did. So no complaints there for me.
Well, as we mentioned before, the 67s, most of the matches were won by one technique. And
Yes.
the case of Lee and Svetlana was the same.
It sure was. Again, 3-3 and 5-9. Osipova took over a bit second round, which was I enjoy her style, so it was fun for me to watch. But either one of them were deserved to advance. Again, but you say like 2 rounds with a bit of a gap there in the second round. I thought that was the most clear-cut semifinal.
Yes, and the final then. what are your thoughts on this final, especially the second round?
Oh, the second round was so frustrating because it was a tight match. The crowd, the massive crowd, clearly favoring the French athlete, and that's that might be affecting things a little bit. And then at the end, Osipova scores to tie it up or to go ahead 3-0 in the second round, and she waves back to not knowing if it had scored. So I think she turned a little bit to her coach, just a little bit distracted, or maybe she was cheering. I'm not exactly sure what she was doing, but she did turn slightly, gave Thea an opening, and Thea lunges in with her very long legs. She's reaching and reaching and reaching and reaching, and she touches. It doesn't, or it did go up, I think, as a head kick. But then it's, a challenge, and they have to review it because it's right at the end of the round. And then like you already said, it's 0-0, and in hyper slow motion, her foot is clearly not there yet. And then it keeps going and it scores. And then up goes the thumb from the referee. It's possible that with this extremely sensitive timekeeping equipment they have, like in the men's 100-meter sprint, where they decided it by 5 1,000ths of a second. Perhaps that was the case here. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but they should have shown it. They should have shown it on the screen or made an announcement that the kick was valid by such and such fractions of a second, because it was very unsatisfying. It looked very hometown, decision that I hope we get in Los Angeles in 4 years. But it didn't. It was unsatisfying. What did you think?
For the ones listening, if this podcast was on YouTube, you would see me smiling basically ear to ear. I'm very happy. I'm very happy for Alonso Rosendo, and I'm very happy for his wife for being able to produce 2 medals in this event. A gold medal coming in a French Olympic champion. It's when they're playing on the home turf is definitely amazing. Someone that picked up a team, and when they picked up this team, it was not what it is today. French team a few years ago was not to be even considered, and now it's something that is not even to be reckoned with. They're very, very strong, bringing good results. And the results, again, Omega timekeeping is very accurate. The company behind it's Swiss Timing, right? In charge of the timekeeping at the Olympics. There's interference here. Maybe it was 0001. Maybe it's like matter of milliseconds.
Yes.
And we cannot see it on the KPNP scoreboard. But for sure, in the Swiss timekeeping, there was still time running when the contact was there, and the 6 point came, and the victory was then clear.
Yes, I'll take your word for it. And but congratulations to France for putting on a tremendous Olympics, like you said. And the broadcasting, the camera work, and the instant replay were by far the best I've ever seen. And unfortunately, the equipment let us down, but still very enjoyable. It's got everybody fired up. I'm excited for whatever comes next, and it's encouraging that Taekwondo can put on this caliber of show for the world.
Yes, it's an historic venue to doing it in the Grand Palais, an arena that was built over 100 years ago for the World Fair, that was used in the Olympics in Paris 100 years ago, that hosted historical events like fencing. Olympic fencing is the most aristocratic combat sport you will have at the Olympics, and being played in the Grand Palais comes up to that flair of the musketeers dueling each other, and then come the guys that are dueling with their with their legs, bouting each other. And combat sports is again that part of the Olympic motto: the stronger, faster, higher. By us is by definitely the stronger one wins. And I'm very happy that in these Olympics all the winners were the strongest in their division. Yesterday, for example, when we saw Viviana Martin win, the 2 bronze medalists were eliminated by her. She beat it, so the last 4 athletes, she beat the other 3. So by far the strongest won. And that's what we want to see. We want to see that Nafia Kusaydin was the world champion, and yet Althea Lauren was better. And here it is. She's the winner. Okay.
Yes. And, following up on your Musketeers theme, that I think there was a lot of athletes that could, fill the role of D'Artagnan in this event. And there's definitely a Porthos. I think that Mr. Sansores from Mexico could fill that role and get cast in a movie. So away we go.
Well, you'll be watching the Paralympics?
I will try to catch some, but I've actually got a busy week. We're heading out on some vacation a week from now. Got to get everything prepared for that. So I might miss a little bit of it, but I'm going to stay tuned as much as I can.
All right, good. Then I'll catch up with you outside of this podcast. And again, I won't be able to produce anything until the end of the Paralympics, of course, by being busy with the games. But in September, I will call you back and we'll do a review of the Olympic Games in general, not just Taekwondo, if you don't mind.
Sounds good, and I'll have some data by then.
All right. Good, Don. Thank you very much. Say hi to your wife and to all your friends over there. And it was really nice talking to you.
Thank you very much, Cesar. I enjoyed it. All the best.
Thank you, Don. It was a pleasure being here with you and with everyone who is listening. This was the Taekwondo Podcast. If you haven't already, listen to our other episodes that are available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. We are releasing new episodes every Tuesdays from September on. We did one every day after the Olympic sessions in Taekwondo. So stay tuned, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a positive review, and share it with your friends. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Taekwondo Podcast, keeping the fans, coaches, and high-performance athletes up to date with the latest news and trends on Olympic Taekwondo. Your host, Coach César Valentim, has almost 20 years of experience with high-performance Taekwondo and has worked all around the world as a Taekwondo trainer. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at Taekwondo Podcast, on Facebook at Taekwondo Cast, and the website taekwondopodcast.com. See you next time.